Good afternoon. This is All India Radio. I am Anubha Rohatgi with the Midday News. The headlines. Budget session of Parliament begins with President Draupadi Murmu's address to the joint sitting of both houses. The President describes today's government as stable, fearless and decisive. President says continuation of Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana is hallmark of a sensitive and pro-poor government. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presents economic survey in both houses of Parliament. GDP growth projected at 6.5% for 2023-24 fiscal. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says world is looking towards India's budget in the present global headwinds. IMF says India to remain fastest growing major economy in the world despite global slowdown. And filing of nominations for assembly elections in Nagaland and Meghalaya begins. President Draupadi Murmu today asserted that India has a stable, fearless and decisive government which is working towards realizing big dreams. Addressing the joint sitting of both the Houses of Parliament on the first day of the budget session at the Central Hall, the President said, surgical strike, firm crackdown on terrorism, befitting response to every misadventure at the LOC and LAC, abrogation of Article 370 and triple talaq are the examples of a decisive government.
मेरी सरकार ने देश हित को सदैव सर्वोपरि रखा। नीति रणनीति में संपूर्ण परिवर्तन की इच्छा शक्ति दिखाई। सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक से लेकर आतंकवाद पर कठोर प्रहार तक, LOC से लेकर LAC तक, हर दुस्साहस के कड़े जवाब तक, आर्टिकल 370 को हटाने से लेकर 3 तलाक तक मेरी सरकार की पहचान एक निर्णायक सरकार।
The President said today the country has a government that respects the honest and works to solve the problems of the poor and empower them permanently. She stressed on the need to build a nation by 2047 which not only embraces its glorious past but also encompasses every golden aspect of modernity.
अमृतकाल के ये 25 वर्ष का कालखंड स्वतंत्रता की स्वर्णिम शताब्दी का और विकसित भारत के निर्माण का कालखंड है। ये 25 वर्ष हम सब के लिए और देश के प्रत्येक नागरिक के लिए कर्तव्यों की पराकाष्ठा करके दिखाने के ये हमारे सामने युग निर्माण का अवसर है और हमें इस अवसर के लिए 100% सामर्थ्य के साथ हर क्षण कार्य करना है।
On India's growing stature in the world, President Murmu said the people have witnessed many positive changes for the first time during the tenure of this government. She said India, which once looked to others for solutions to most of its problems, is today emerging as a provider of solutions for the issues faced by the world. Talking about India's G20 presidency, the President said with the mantra of One Earth, One Family, One Future, the country is attempting to find collective solutions to the current global challenges in collaboration with the G20 member countries. She added that India has expanded its role, keeping its national interests paramount. President Murmu added that the government firmly believes that lasting peace is possible only when the country is strong politically and strategically. Therefore, it is constantly laying emphasis on the modernization of military strength. Asserting that corruption is the biggest enemy of democracy and social justice, the President said there has been a relentless fight against corruption in the last few years.
मेरी सरकार का स्पष्ट मत है कि भ्रष्टाचार लोकतंत्र का और सामाजिक न्याय का सबसे बड़ा दुश्मन है। भ्रष्टाचार के विरुद्ध निरंतर लड़ाई चल रही है। हमने सुनिश्चित किया है कि व्यवस्था में ईमानदार का सम्मान होगा। भ्रष्टाचारियों के लिए समाज में किसी भी प्रकार की सहानुभूति न हो, इसके लिए सामाजिक चेतना भी देश में बढ़ रही है। पिछले वर्षों में भ्रष्टाचार मुक्त इकोसिस्टम बनाने की दिशा में बेनामी संपत्ति अधिनियम को नोटिफाई किया गया है।
The President also said major reforms have been introduced, including Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile Trinity, One Nation, One Ration Card, DBT and Digital India.
बीते वर्षों में डीबीटी के रूप में, डिजिटल इंडिया के रूप में एक स्थायी और पारदर्शी व्यवस्था देश ने तैयार की है। आज 300 से ज्यादा योजनाओं का पैसा सीधे लाभार्थियों के बैंक खाते तक पहुंच रहा है। अब तक पूरी पारदर्शिता से 27 लाख करोड़ रुपए से ज्यादा की रकम करोड़ों लोगों तक पहुंचाई गई है। वर्ल्ड बैंक की रिपोर्ट करती है कि ऐसा योजना और ऐसी व्यवस्थाओं के कारण ही कोरोना काल में भारत करोड़ों लोगों को गरीबी रेखा से नीचे जाने से बचा पाया है।
The President said the government has decided to continue the PM Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana in line with the changing circumstances. This is the hallmark of a sensitive and pro-poor government.
देश में कोई गरीब भूखा नहीं सोए। मुझे खुशी है कि मेरी सरकार ने पीएम गरीब कल्याण अन्न योजना को नई परिस्थितियों के अनुसार आगे भी चलाने का निर्णय लिया है। पीएम गरीब कल्याण अन्न योजना के तहत सरकार गरीबों को मुफ्त अनाज के लिए लगभग 3.5 लाख करोड़ रुपया खर्च कर चुकी है।
On women empowerment, the President said all the welfare schemes launched by the government have a women-centric approach and provide them new opportunities for employment. She lauded the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao campaign, Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan and the Pradhan Mantri Matru Bandhana Yojana. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that the world is looking towards India's budget in the present global headwinds.
आज के वैश्विक परिस्थिति में भारत के बजट के तरफ न सिर्फ भारत का लेकिन पूरे विश्व का ध्यान है। डावाडोल विश्व की आर्थिक परिस्थिति में भारत का बजट भारत के सामान्य मानवी की आशा आकांक्षाओं को तो पूरा करने का प्रयास करेगा ही, लेकिन विश्व जो आशा की किरण देख रहा है उसे वो और अधिक प्रकाशमान नजर आए। मुझे पूरा भरोसा है निर्मला जी इन अपेक्षाओं को पूर्ण करने के लिए भरपूर प्रयास करेंगी।
Ahead of the budget session of the Parliament, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that India's budget is an attempt to meet the hopes and aspirations of the common citizens. He said the government's only motto is India first, citizen first.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी के नेतृत्व में एनडीए सरकार उसका एक ही मकसद रहा है, एक ही मोटो रहा है, एक ही लक्ष्य रहा है और हमारी कार्य संस्कृति के केंद्र बिंदु में भी एक ही विचार रहा है, इंडिया फर्स्ट, सिटीजन फर्स्ट। सबसे पहले देश, सबसे पहले देशवासी। उसी भावना को आगे बढ़ाते हुए ये बजट सत्र में भी तकरार भी रहेगी लेकिन तकरीर भी तो होनी चाहिए।
Terming the first day of the budget session an important day, the Prime Minister said President Draupadi Murmu's speech is the pride of our constitution and parliamentary system. He said this is also an opportunity for women empowerment. Congress leader Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary said the President's speech is nothing about unemployment. Talking to media outside the Parliament, he said there are several issues which will be raised by his party in Parliament. Echoing similar sentiments, BRS MP K. Keshava Rao said there was no mention of issues on unemployment and inflation. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts. The Economic Survey 2022-23 has projected a baseline GDP growth of 6.5% in real terms in the next financial year. The survey was presented in both the Houses of Parliament by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ahead of the Union Budget to be presented tomorrow. According to the survey, the Indian economy is expected to grow at 7% in real terms in the current financial year. It also said India will remain the fastest growing major economy in the world. The survey said India has become the world's 5th largest economy and the nominal GDP of India will be around $3.5 trillion in March this year. The survey stated that the rise in consumer prices has slowed considerably. According to the survey, the annual rate of inflation is below 6% and wholesale prices are rising at a rate below 5%. The export of goods and services in the first 9 months of the current financial year is up 16%. Compared to the same period in 2021-22. The International Monetary Fund IMF has said despite global headwinds, India will remain the fastest growing major economy in the world. In its January update on World Economic Outlook released today, the IMF said India will grow at 6.1% in 2023 before picking up to 6.8% in 2024, fueled by resilient domestic demand. The IMF also pointed out that growth in emerging and developing Asia is expected to rise at 5.3% in 2023 and 5.2% in 2024. On a positive note, the IMF said the negative growth in global GDP or global GDP per capita is not expected despite the fear of recession. The IMF stated that growth in China is projected to rise to 5.2% in 2023, pointing to rapidly improving mobility. Filing of nominations for assembly elections in Nagaland and Meghalaya began today with the issuance of notification. Candidates can file their nomination papers till February 7th. Scrutiny will be done on 8th February and the last date for withdrawal of candidature is February 10th. Polling for 60-seat assemblies each of both states will take place on February 27th, while counting of votes will be taken up on 2nd March along with the Tripura assembly elections. In Tripura, polling will be held on 16th February. Filing of nominations for Tripura assembly elections ended yesterday. Scrutiny of nomination papers will be taken up today and the last date for withdrawal of candidature is 2nd February. The Election Commission has made elaborate arrangements for conducting free and fair elections in all the three states. Chief Election Officer of Meghalaya, F.R. Khargonkar, said 120 companies of CAPF will be deployed for the polls and 40 companies are already stationed in the state. In Uttarakhand, under the chairmanship of Additional Chief Secretary Finance, a high-powered committee meeting was held in Dehradun on the displacement and rehabilitation of disaster-affected people in Joshimath. All aspects related to the Joshimath issue were discussed in detail and a draft report was prepared. The district magistrate of Chamoli suggested 3 options for rehabilitation and displacement. Meanwhile, the water discharge in Joshimath has reduced significantly and the number of buildings with cracks is also reported to have stabled. Amrit Udyan at Rashtrapati Bhavan has been opened for general public from today. On the occasion of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, President Draupadi Murmu has given a common name to the Rashtrapati Bhavan gardens as Amrit Udyan. The visitors will be able to see specially cultivated tulips of 12 unique varieties at Amrit Udyan, which are expected to bloom in phases. This time, the gardens will remain open for nearly 2 months till 26th March from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Except on Mondays, the last 4 days of the gardens will be for special categories: farmers, differently abled, personnel of defense forces, paramilitary forces and police, and for women including tribal women's self-help groups. All India Radio has invited applications to design the logo depicting the 100th episode of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Mann Ki Baat program. The participants can submit their entries latest by tomorrow. The logo should be designed on a digital platform and reproducible in multiple formats for multiple platforms. The details are available at the MyGov portal. MyGov is also hosting a jingle contest for the 100th episode of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Mann Ki Baat program on All India Radio. The purpose of the contest is to create a memorable, easily recognizable melody that will remain in the minds and hearts of the citizens. National Security Advisor Ajit Dobhal has emphasized India's growing role as a trusted supply chain partner and contributor in the global technology value chain. The NSA also underlined the importance of easing export control measures to facilitate technology access, co-production and co-development between India and the US. Mr. Dobhal was speaking at the launch of the US-India Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies at the Chamber of Commerce's US-India Business Council Roundtable Conference in Washington yesterday. The NSA reached Washington yesterday to attend the first formal talks on the Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technologies. In Pakistan, the death toll in the mosque suicide blast has risen to 83 while 157 people have been injured. The blast occurred in a mosque located in the police lines area of Peshawar near Afghanistan. According to officials, rescue operation is underway as many people are feared to be trapped under the rubble. And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Budget session of Parliament begins with President Draupadi Murmu's address to the joint sitting of both houses. President describes today's government as stable, fearless and decisive. President says continuation of Garib Kalyan Yojana is hallmark of a sensitive and pro-poor government. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presents economic survey in both houses of Parliament. GDP growth projected at 6.5% for 2023-24 fiscal. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says world is looking towards India budget in the present global headwinds. IMF says India to remain fastest growing major economy in the world despite global slowdown. And filing of nominations for assembly elections in Nagaland and Meghalaya begins. And with that, we end the Midday News.